Wasn't I just talking about toxic masculinity not very long ago in another video? That's right, I was talking about Meryl Streep and what she had to say about toxic masculinity, but now we're going to be talking about what Gwyneth Paltrow has to say about toxic masculinity. So this ought to be great, right? So we have here an amazing opening headline. Avengers Endgame star Gwyneth Paltrow launches Goopfellas podcast to help men fight toxic masculinity. So let's go ahead and see what Gwyneth Paltrow has to say about this. The Goopfellas podcast, which is a horrible name, by the way, will focus on helping men achieve physical and or mental health transformations. Goop's chief content officer, Elise Loren, spoke to Fast Company last week about the podcast, stating, "It feels like we're at a point in the culture where men are rejecting that sort of toxic masculinity." Okay, she added, we wanted to do something that was more about the emotional health of men, the importance of vulnerability, and this acknowledgement of how hard these things can be. What? Fast Company indicates the podcast will highlight intervention stories in order to help men feel less alone and more comfortable with a process unfamiliar to them. Lauren notes, "I think men are really hungry for that." First off, you're a woman. I don't think that you should be really speaking for what men are hungry for, you know? Like, I don't know. Like, it's just kind of weird. This whole thing is just really weird. It will also investigate physical health alongside spiritual, mental health, and relationships. And then we have here a quote. "It's all connected. That's where we come from. I think men are starting to realize I can go to the gym and I can put butter in my coffee." Okay, my first question is, who puts butter in their coffee? That is the most insane thing I've ever heard in my life. But I'm profoundly unhappy, or I feel like I have no purpose in my life. Wellness is really a combination that touches on all of those things. Well, I don't think that this is a new concept. Men have been feeling, I'm sure, ever since the dawn of time, these types of things. You know? I know that I myself have struggled in the past with the feeling of not having a purpose in my life, you know? I think that is a common male feeling. You know, I think a lot of men feel that way. A lot of men feel that feeling of, I have no purpose in my life. That is a very common feeling. Acting like this is suddenly a new thing is just ridiculous, and it just shows that you actually do not understand men at all. A lot of men probably don't express it emotionally the same way that women do, because we are not as emotional. We're not as emotional as far as who we are as people as women are and stuff. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with emotion, but a lot of time men choose to hide that and stuff. And I'm not saying that's necessarily a good thing either, but that isn't a thing. That isn't a toxic masculinity thing. That is just a male thing. That's just what men do. I know that I have hid many of my emotions in the past because I'm trying to be the sturdy one in my family, and I don't want to allow my emotions to make that sturdiness of the relationship of my family shaky in any way or anything, So that's usually why I choose to hide my emotions and stuff, is because of that. It has nothing to do with toxic masculinity. I'm actually doing it because I'm trying to think about my family and doing what's best for them. So we have here Gwyneth Paltrow, who is with, I try not to judge people based on their appearances, but I'm sorry. If these do not look like the ultimate soy boys, then I don't know what does. And you could look, these are obviously soy boys. Okay, come on. This whole thing that they're doing here is absolute soy. But I can guarantee you that both of these guys right now are thinking how much they would love to get laid with Gwyneth Paltrow. I'm just saying. Today we launched Goopfellas, the brilliant podcast by these two people. Tune in to hear incredibly moving, powerful stories of healing by these two gorgeous men. And it is so cringy. It is absolutely so cringy. Oh my gosh. Okay. Okay, so that's pretty much. Mullen indicated he wanted to spread the word that it's okay for us guys to take care of ourselves. It's not unmanly. What? No. What? What world are you from? I've never met a man who ever said that that was unmanly. What on earth are you talking about? This is the dumbest thing I've ever seen in my life. The whole toxic masculinity thing is just ridiculous in general. That phrase was actually invented by a woman, believe it or not. I don't remember her name off the top of my head, but it was actually invented by a woman in like the 80s or something like that. Or 90s, 80s, 90s, something like that. You can actually look it up, the phrase, and I'll tell you the history about the whole toxic masculinity thing. But the whole toxic masculinity thing is absolutely ridiculous, okay? Because fighting toxic masculinity is basically an excuse for men not to have to worry about responsibility. That's a big thing having to do with this whole anti-toxic masculinity thing. And it also is something that women love because it allows them to feel more powerful than men. Okay, that is really what the whole toxic masculinity thing boils down to. I'm sure she feels pretty powerful right now, being kind of, you know, over these two boys or whatever and stuff. You know, it's just crazy. It's just absolutely crazy. I hate the whole toxic masculinity thing because, you know, hey, I'm just going to flat out say it. There are differences between men and women, okay? Men are masculine in nature. At least we're supposed to be masculine in nature. I'm not just saying that because we're males. It's actually a natural thing. Look at pretty much anything else in the animal kingdom, and the males are usually the big, strong ones that are, you know, the more powerful ones. They're usually the ones that are kind of more, in a lot of ways, masculine than their female counterparts. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. Women have strengths as well. Men and women both have strengths and weaknesses and differences. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. You know, women are in a lot of ways a lot more, what's the word? You know, they care more about people than men do. They're a lot more emotionally connected than men are and stuff and all of that. And, you know, I can't even think of the word off the top of my head, but, anyway. Why can't I think of the word? Anyway, so yeah, this whole thing is just absolutely ridiculous, and I don't want to get too much into a rabbit hole about this whole thing, but toxic masculinity is just such a cringy thing, and I can't stand, especially when men are saying that they're fighting toxic masculinity. That just is really cringy to me, and it's like the whole male feminist thing. It's pretty much that level of cringe. So anyway, this whole thing is just absolutely ridiculous. You know, Gwyneth Paltrow is kind of taking one side of the whole toxic masculinity thing, and then Meryl Streep's kind of taking the other side, so that's kind of an interesting thing as well. But yeah, you can go check out my Meryl Streep video if you want to hear more about my thoughts about all of that. But with that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, then consider subscribing to the channel. Thank you for checking out this video. And yeah, I will talk to you all very soon in another video. Talk to you later. Bye.